Welcome to the Pirate Republic podcast. I'm Bryan, but I do have an alias. It's Captain Black Quill. And today we're going to be talking about a horrific event that happened to Port Royale, Jamaica in 1692, and then its effect on the Pirate Republic. But first, let's do a little careening of the ship, a little swabbing of the deck, and let me tell you what's been going on. I have been plugging away at Pirates of the, not Wild West, but Pirates of World War II, the second novel in that Pirates in Time series. I set a deadline for July 28th that I need to have it to my editor, and that's been really helpful. Plugging through 7,000 words on a weekend felt really good. And that's all due to setting a deadline, setting a goal, which, surprised to say, that usually works. So I should be finishing that towards the middle half of the summer, and then sending it to the editor, give him a couple weeks, and then hopefully by September I will have a finished, published version of it. I'm going to be doing Comic-Con Los Angeles. I'll have a booth I'm sharing with a couple other authors, and my goal is to have that book on the shelf then. So if you've been waiting for that, we're getting there. We're almost there. The ship's almost at port. The other bit of news is the Pirate Republic newsletter. It comes out every Friday. If you want to sign up, go to thepiraterepublic.com and you can find the newsletter section, and you can sign up there for the weekly newsletter about pirate history, pirate stories, pirate adventures, pirate events. Anything that has to do with pirates goes into that newsletter weekly. And when you sign up, you can sign up with your pirate alias, which is kind of fun. The 8th episode will come out this Friday. So if you want to get in on it before, then, you only have a few days to sign up. I hope you enjoy it if you are receiving it at the moment. 7 episodes in, hopefully it's getting better, more concise, cleaner, good content. This one, I have some pretty interesting stuff that's happening. So I hope you sign up. Also, I completed a very interesting project that I've been thinking about for a while. The book Pirates of the Wild West had a AI audio version that I got into the beta for Amazon. So it was just strictly through Amazon and Audible, and it was a AI voice of a woman with an English accent. So people had reached out and said, oh, you should do it yourself. It should be your voice. Not totally crazy about my voice, but I get that. I understand the sentiment on that. And as things go on, AI has gotten so much better. And I've listened to a few audiobooks that had a clone of the author's voice. Now, to be straight up, I have tried to record a audiobook version of Pirates of the Wild West, and I've gotten through 3 chapters of it. It is not easy to do. It is time consuming. I don't feel like I speak well. I have to edit these podcasts to take out all of my stutters and ands and ums, and there still might be some left in here. So when this started to gain traction where you can clone your voice, I went to this company called 11 Labs, and what they do is you give them just a snippet of your voice, and then they will mimic it, and you can load your ebook or whatever document you have into the program, and it will spit out a audiobook version of it in my voice. And then I can go through and I can kind of edit it, make sure that it's pronouncing words and stuff correctly. That is, I think that's going to get better and better as time goes along. I sent the first chapter to a friend of mine and said, what do you think? Does it sound like me? And he says, dude, that is like 90% you. He says, because you told me it's AI, I'm being critique-ish on it, and so I can pick out a few things. And of course, I can see it as well. But I think it's really, really clean and good, and it, it's my voice, and I didn't have to go through all the process. The book is doing well. I've got some great reviews on it. Everybody who is listening to this that has read it and has given me a review, I so appreciate it. If you haven't given it a review and you have read it, please do that. That is super helpful. But the economics of it, to have a voice actor, make a audiobook of this we're talking close to $10,000. And it's not going to, there's no revenue model that I don't lose out with that. It's just, it's just not going to be that successful. So I'm going to push out this new 11 Labs voice clone audiobook version into market on the 20th of June. Now, I'll just keep the one that's on Amazon and Audible because that's the only way you can do a AI narrated book on those platforms at the moment. I'm sure they'll release it at some point in time, and then I'll flip that current AI narrated version into the one that's my voice. But if you're interested, after the 20th of June, that version, the new one, will be available on my website, Barnes & Noble, Spotify, and a few other places. I'll probably send out an announcement if you are signed up for my newsletter for my author site at bryancantrell.com. Okay, so this new episode is about the Port Royale earthquake and tsunami that happened in 1692. All right, I'm also going to try something where this is going to be a little bit more, hopefully, cinematic for your ears. I'm going to add in a few sound effects and some music to this. So I'm going to pause for a moment and get this thing ready, and then we're going to launch. Oh, and then at the end, as I was playing with the AI studio with 11 Labs, what I could do also with this particular Port Royale tsunami story is it would make a podcast with my clone voice and another AI voice talking about it afterwards. I'm going to add it to the end. I just thought it was really interesting where this is going. It's pretty darn cool. And AI has, either a positive or negative effect on everyone, and I get that. I'm a one-person creative entrepreneur, so this is amazing for me because all of these things would not be possible for me to do by myself, and I don't make enough money out of any of these things to hire people to join in this stuff with me. So for a single person company, it's allowing me to be way more creative and execute ideas that I've had that I just would never have the funds or time to do. So this is all just kind of playing with it. Everything's going to improve and get better. And I'm excited about trying more and more of these tools out to see if I can create more interesting content for pirates. But here's my thought. I want to put this out there that if it was the golden age of piracy right now, pirates were very savvy and very technical minded and looking for any edge. This AI stuff is my edge to create media and content all on my own and affordably. And I think that is a pirate way of looking at it. Pirates use the things that are available to them to get the job done, whether it's a hardy crew or a hardy AI crew. I honestly think pirates would be utilizing any tools that they could to make a difference. All right, here we go. Get ready. Let's jump into pirate history. June 7th, 1692. A day that would forever alter the Caribbean's landscape in history. At precisely 11:43 a.m., the earth trembled beneath Port Royale, Jamaica, the heart of piracy in the New World. In mere moments, this bustling port city, known as the wickedest city in the world, was swallowed by the sea. Port Royale was no ordinary city. Established by the Spanish in 1494 and later taken over by the English in 1655, it quickly became a thriving hub for trade and privateering. Its strategic location at the mouth of Kingston Harbor made it an ideal base for the English privateers to launch raids against Spanish ships and settlements. By the late 17th century, Port Royale was one of the busiest and wealthiest ports in the Americas, earning its nickname Storehouse and Treasury of the West Indies. But it wasn't just trade that flourished here. Port Royale became infamous for its lawlessness and indulgence. Taverns, gambling dens, and brothels lined the streets, catering to the pirates, the privateers, and the merchants who spent their fortunes in pursuit of pleasure. The city was a haven for notorious figures like Captain Henry Morgan, Anne Bonny, and Calico Jack Rack. But such excess comes at a cost. Many believed that Port Royale's prosperity was built on sin, and some even saw its eventual downfall as divine retribution. In the days that followed the disaster, the Jamaican Council declared, "We are become by this an instance of God's Almighty's severe judgment." Reverend Cotton Mather in Boston echoed this sentiment, writing, "Behold, an accident speaking to all of our English America." On that fateful morning, the earth shook violently. 3 separate shocks, each more intense than the last, culminated in a massive 7.5 magnitude earthquake. The ground beneath Port Royale liquefied, causing buildings to sink into the sea. A towering tsunami followed, sweeping away wharfs, ships, and entire streets. Eyewitness reported that the sea retreated hundreds of yards before crashing back with devastating force. In just 2 minutes, 2/3 of Port Royale was submerged. Approximately 2,000 people perished that day, and another 3,000 succumbed to their injuries and disease in the following weeks. The devastation was so complete that even the dead were not spared. Corpses from the cemetery floated in the harbor alongside the recent victims. Today, the sunken ruins of Port Royale lie beneath Kingston Harbor, preserved under the sea. And in 1959, underwater archaeologists discovered a pocket watch. Its hands frozen in time, 11:43 a.m., the exact moment the city fell. This eerie artifact serves as a haunting reminder of Port Royale's sudden and tragic end. But here's where the tale gets darker. Henry Morgan, that legendary buccaneer turned lieutenant governor of Jamaica, had ruled these docks for years. Though he had died 4 years prior, his tomb lay in the city's graveyard until the quake dragged that cemetery straight into the harbor. Some say his coffin floated off to sea, never to be seen again. Others whisper his soul returned to the waves to captain a ghost fleet forevermore. No famous pirates were known to have died that day during the tsunami, but many a retired privateer, tavern wench, rogue trader, and black-hearted smuggler surely met their end as the sea took back the town. Port Royale's sinking marked more than the loss of a city. It was the death knell for the pirate paradise. Afterwards, British authorities moved to Kingston, and the age of roguish impunity began to falter. Yet, they say the ghosts of Port Royale still stir beneath the waves, drinking in sunken taverns and dancing with the dead in silted alleyways. Sailors claim strange lights shimmer beneath the surface near the old harbor, and not a few have heard cannon fire with no ship in sight. So next time you cast your anchor near Jamaica's coast, pour out a dram for the city that dared to defy both king and sea, and was buried for it. The story of Port Royale is more than just a tale of pirates and disaster. It's a cautionary tale about the perils of excess and the fragility of human endeavors. The city's rise and fall reflect the complexities of colonial ambition, the allure of wealth, and the consequences of moral decay. As we look back on Port Royale, we are reminded that history is not just about the events that transpired, but about the lessons we can learn from them. The sunken city beneath the wave whispers its story to those who will listen, urging us to remember and reflect. Imagine a city so wicked, so wealthy, that when it vanished beneath the waves in 1692, some called it divine punishment. The story of Port Royal isn't just about pirates and earthquakes. It's about how an entire civilization can disappear in less than 5 minutes.
That's such a haunting way to think about it. The fact that we know the exact moment, 11:43 a.m. because they found a pocket watch frozen in time on the seafloor makes it even more chilling.
Well, let me paint the scene of that fateful morning. Port Royal was at its peak, the richest port in the New World, with more taverns per capita than any other city on Earth. One for every 10 residents, if you can believe it.
Hmm. So basically like having a bar on every corner of Manhattan, but packed into a much smaller space. And these weren't just any taverns, they were serving pirates and privateers who had literal fortunes to spend, right?
Exactly, and that's what makes this story so fascinating. The English authorities had basically turned Port Royal into a legal pirate haven. They'd issue these letters of marque that let captains attack Spanish ships and settlements, then take a cut of the profits.
You know what's wild about that? It's like they created this perfect storm, concentrating enormous wealth, lawlessness, and strategic importance all in one place. But nature had other plans.
Right? And when disaster struck, it was devastating. 3 massive earthquake shocks hit, and because the city was built on sand and gravel, the ground literally turned to liquid. 2/3 of Port Royal just sank.
The numbers are staggering. 2,000 people died that day, with another 3,000 in the weeks that followed. But what happened to all the famous pirates? Like Henry Morgan?
Well, that's one of the most intriguing parts. Morgan had died 4 years earlier, but his tomb was in the cemetery that got dragged into the harbor. Legend has it his coffin was seen floating out to sea, never to be found.
Oh my God, that's so eerie. And I've heard modern sailors still report strange things around the old harbour. Lights under the water, phantom cannon fire, even music from the sunken taverns.
The archaeological findings are just as fascinating as the ghost stories. They found everything from Chinese porcelain to German stoneware preserved in the oxygen-poor waters. It's like a time capsule of global trade in the 1600s.
So what you're saying is that this disaster actually preserved a unique moment in history, when pirates could become governors and a single port city could connect trade routes from around the world.
Precisely. And here's what's really interesting. The religious leaders of the time saw it as divine punishment. The Jamaica Council officially declared it God Almighty's severe judgment. Even Reverend Cotton Mather up in Boston weighed in.
That reminds me of how humans always try to find meaning in disasters. Though in this case, the real cause was much more scientific, liquefaction of the sandy soil combined with a massive tsunami.
You know what's particularly fascinating? The sea actually pulled back hundreds of yards before the tsunami hit. Imagine standing there watching the harbor bottom exposed for the first time in history, not knowing what was coming.
That must have been terrifying, especially for a population that probably wasn't sober most of the time. I mean, this was a city that basically ran on rum.
And speaking of rum, the disaster marked the end of the golden age of piracy in the Caribbean. The British authorities moved to Kingston, and suddenly the wild days of Port Royal were just gone.
Well, not entirely gone. They're just underwater now. The fact that we can still dive down and see the remains of this infamous city is pretty remarkable.
That's true. And you know what's really thought-provoking? We've explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. How many other Port Royals are out there waiting to be discovered?
Now that's something to think about. Though I doubt any of them have quite such a colourful story, from pirate haven to underwater archaeological treasure.
And that's really the legacy of Port Royal. It's not just a cautionary tale about excess or natural disasters. It's a reminder of how quickly everything we build can disappear, leaving behind only legends and artifacts in the sand.